Hi, I'm excited to be here to chat with y'all because I want to give you the honest truth about dating after 40. I did it for a long time, so I'm here for spilling the tea. And if you're over 40 and you're dating and you for whatever reason and you feel like it's confusing, very confusing, overwhelming, exhausting, and just sometimes like what is this? What is going on? Is this even possible for me? I want you to know it is possible. Absolutely 100% possible. So I'm here to give you all the scoop on how it can be possible, what some tips and tricks. And this is actually a series. This is the first video of a series. So I'm starting a series to share a bunch of things that I learned because I didn't get married till I was 47. Yeah, I know, right? Hard to believe, right? I mean, look at me. I mean, come on. But yeah, I dated forever, like 20s, 30s, 40s, and I finally got the hang of it in my 40s and met my husband when I was 47. So it is, it was a journey and it was challenging and fun. At the end, it got to be really fun once I started to get the hang of it. So I'm really hoping I can speed up the process for you or make it more enjoyable. So even if you're like, I actually kind of have fun being single, but one day I'd like to be in a relationship. That's kind of how I was. But I just kept, I kept trying every once in a while just to make it kind of fun along the way, enjoy all the things, and then, get to the place you want to be kind of at the end. So I'm gonna start this video series about dating. It's called Good Lovin', and I thought about summer loving, but we want to go long term here. I think summer loving is fun, and that's what you're up for this summer. But yeah, we're gonna go for some good loving, and to start with just the nitty gritty that people always ask me about are like the tools, the methods, the dating. So I kind of want to get that practical, that question so I can kind of get you out there a little bit faster so you can start using the tools. And then as we go through the series, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into what I dug deeper into, some of the more of the emotional part that you got to work through, some of the practical, like really practical tips of like how to tell people no in a nice way. So really like specific stuff I learned. Throughout this journey. But let's just start with like some of the basics that people mostly ask me about first, or just kind of like, how did you do it? How did you, what did you try? What did you do? What worked? And so we're going to start with just the apps, the events, and some other special things, right? Okay. So like I said, I'm Elizabeth. I am happily married. I've been married for 7 years now. It'll be 7 years and a couple of months I'll be there. So we made it. And I didn't get married till I was 47. And honestly, I didn't really start dating for real. I mean, I casually dated, but I honestly didn't really have my first real boyfriend until I was 45. So I kind of had a trial one that was interesting, and then learned a lot from that. And then next one was my husband. So that was a good thing, had the practice run and then got the real thing. So I just want to start talking about events, because that was something I started up before let me back up just one more second. Dating is different over time. So this is a big thing I learned. It's the great part of going on that journey and kind of, getting to be 47 and beyond, is that you learn a lot. And one of the things I could look back on is it was really different every decade, right? So in my 20s, I was, in high school and college, you're dating people that from school and college typically. But in my 20s, you're out there in the wild and you're kind of dating social circles, work, because there's a lot of single people at work. It's a great place. It's not super hard to find people to date. I mean, maybe it's getting harder. I don't know. But, either you were kind of doing these things where you would run across people that were also single. The pool was a little bigger. Then you get into your 30s and the pool starts to get smaller. People are getting married. When you go to work, not as many of your coworkers. You're in your 30s. A lot of the people in your 30s are married. So, your pool is getting smaller. People are getting married. So there's fewer people for you to date. But the clock starts ticking a little louder. So it's a little strange. You're kind of I feel like maybe I should be married. I don't know. And maybe I should really step up my game, which is what I did in my 30s. And then, when you get to your 40s, it's even, different, because a lot of people are married, have been married, and are starting to get divorced. So you gotta kind of look at your audience, right? And that's why it's interesting to look at these different decades. Where are they coming from? The guys or the people that you're looking at, what's their past? Where are they at in their phase? So 30s can be a little quieter because there may be not as many people out there. But then the 40s, they start coming back on the market, right? They're coming back in the circle of the pool because they're getting divorced. And then things change too in your 50s and 60s and 70s. You might find yourself single for many, many reasons. So and people have families at that point. So there's a lot of really different parts to think about. You think about yourself dating, but you also think about the other people that you're going to be dating, right? And where are they coming from? So it's really a holistic kind of look at like where I'm at in this phase, and then maybe I should change up my dating tactics for that phase, right? So we're going to kind of dig into all that in this series. But the first one I want to talk about is just kind of things that I went through and tried before I even knew what I was doing. So in my 20s, like I said, I kind of just dated people I met, like people at work, people, social circles and whatnot, or at a bar. I mean, it was really, really easy. But once you get in your 30s and the pool gets smaller, I was like, wow, I'm not meeting as many people. I need to like get out there. I want to put myself out there and see. So, I did a lot of the things that people recommend, which are great. I volunteered a lot. That's a good way to meet people, especially I volunteered at like an improv theater. There were a lot of fun people in their 20s, 30s, that kind of thing. So I did volunteering. You can join different social groups or maybe like industry groups, work groups, like you're kind of in your career. So that's a good time to do that. So that's cool. But I wasn't meeting people that way. And so I wanted to find some new stuff. And at the time I lived in Atlanta, and it was great because there's this company, they still exist. I looked them up, called 8 at 8. And they had this really cool concept where you would sign up for dinner, and it was a dinner and they would have 4 men and 4 women. And they, based on like what you told them about yourself, they would try to put you next to someone who might have something in common. And that was the first thing I really like actively tried. I kind of went all in on like this dinner date group thing because it was new and I'd never heard of it. It was super fun, really interesting. In my 30s, it was fun because people had a lot to talk about. Everyone was still kind of new to like relationships and dating, so everyone still had like bright spirit. I remember one time, it ended. I mean, often these dinners in my 30s, we would end up at like some bar, like playing pool and doing shots. Like that was not uncommon for like, everyone to be like, dinner was great, let's all go out. So that was like, it was really fun. And I met a lot of people. Didn't have a ton of success date with like the guys I met, but I made some really fun girlfriends because like, it was just really fun. And then this 8 at 8 company also did events. So they would have mixers. So all the people that were on their mailing list, they would also do these like group mixers where you could get together at a bar or whatever and do that. And that was interesting because I found that I enjoyed the dinner more because I got like, there were only 8 people, so I could kind of deal with the conversation. The mixers were a little intense and there were a lot of amazing women there. And so I wasn't like I didn't, want to compete. You're kind of out there with everybody else in the pool, but it was kind of hard because you're like, wow, I'm here and I'm awesome and I'm cool, but like, so is she and so is she and so is she. And no one was, it wasn't like I was particularly like jealous of anyone. They just were a lot of people for the, like your target audience to meet, right? So you're giving them a challenge too of like, whoa, they're at the buffet and there's just a lot of good food. That's a weird analogy, but you know what I mean? So it was a different environment. But if you're a mixer person, it's fun. And I will say that the thing I really loved about mixers, it's a great place to practice flirting and like practice for dates. So you get to practice your conversation skills. You get to tell your story, when people are like, oh, well, hi, I'm Elizabeth. And you tell them about you. You get to like kind of do it's almost like looking for a job, but it's like your elevator pitch. So you get to practice like telling people who you are, what you're interested in. You get to see their reactions, a little bit of like a focus group, So that's a nice part about the mixers. You get to see how they respond and you can change your story when you walk over to the next person, right? You can be like, oh, that didn't go over well. Let me go try over here. So mixers were fun. I felt like it was a really good practice for the conversations that you might be having when you're one-on-one on a date. So I highly recommend trying them. And you can kind of see like what you like and how big and if you wanted to have an activity or not, because sometimes that can kind of give it a focus. So dinners were super fun. Those were kind of my fave. Mixers were cool, great for practice for the dinners. And then like there were things like speed dating. I don't even know if they still do that, but I think that it's still possible because everyone's trying everything. But things like that where it's really more like a mixer where you're intentionally kind of paired up with people. And those were tricky because it's hard to keep people focused, right? You're having a one-on-one conversation, but it's really short. People are thinking about the next person they're going to talk to or who they just talked to because it's super fast. So I found it could be hard to get people to focus, but it was really fun. And you, again, got to practice your conversation skills, like quick jumping in. Also your listening skills. What can I learn in like 2 minutes about this person that help me make a decision of whether I want to go on a second or a real date or a second date. And there were some funny people. Like one time there was a magician at one that was his thing. I think he might have been nervous. I mean, now years later, I think about like a little more empathetic now. And I was like, oh, I bet he was nervous and he felt comfortable because he's like had a little card trick, something to keep you engaged. And I mean, I remembered it, 20 years later. So yay to him. He was memorable. Like the other people don't remember them at all. So, he had a thing. He'd probably been on a bunch of these and wanted to kind of get people's attention, be memorable, entertain. So, there's a lot of different things you come across. There was one other one that I wanted to mention was, this is kind of a mixer thing, but there was game nights have become popular. And I did one of those. This was later when in my 40s, when every decade I would kind of jump back in and try new stuff. And this was a Cards Against Humanity game night. And wow, awkward, so awkward, but really fun. You got to know like what these people are like their sarcastic, snarky side. So it definitely gave you a look into someone's personality, and it was hilarious. But I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know if I need to know this soon, So that was fun and weird. But game nights are fun. So there's a lot of things you can try, and I recommend trying them all. They're all unique. They're all different. We all have different personalities. So you might enjoy something that I didn't enjoy, or you might enjoy it in a different way. So I recommend just like going for it, looking for what singles mixers, singles events. You can find things in your age group, or, just mix it up. My husband's 7 years younger, so hey, go crazy, So that's kind of the thing for events that I wanted to share as my experience with it. And one last note is that it did kind of change over time, right? So this is a funny thing that there are a lot of good things, but there was one that I noticed, the dinner thing. So I did it in my 30s. When I got to my 40s, in the 30s, we're all like, let's go out afterwards. The 40s, everyone had been dating for a while. Maybe people were divorced, and they were a little more like jaded. So the end of the night typically was like the guys would leave the restaurant, and then the women would go to the bar and get another glass of wine and gossip about them and be like, oh, he was blah, blah, blah. And at the time, even I was like, wow, this really doesn't feel great. Like, this isn't really very nice of us to, these guys spent their evening with us. And here we are, like, kind of, talking bad about them and critiquing them and judging them. And I was like, I don't know if that's really great. And possibly I had this aha, maybe the second time this had happened. I was like, maybe that's why we're still single. Maybe we're too picky. Maybe we're judgy. So these in-person things can be a really good opportunity for some self-reflection on, like, when you go home at the end of the night and be like, how did I behave, right? We all think about how did the other person behave, but got to take a little ownership. How did I behave? So that's about events. Let's cruise into talking about apps. So apps, that's how I met my husband. I met him on Bumble. I've been doing these events. I had tried apps too. I mean, like, I got in on the very beginning of Match.com and eHarmony, and then I evolved into Bumble. I've tried Tinder, other things. There's a lot of things, a lot of swiping by the end of my dating career. But Bumble was the one for me. And what I love about the apps is that, one, it's just, it does lead to dates. Like, so the events are great for like practice of conversations, but you may not get as many actual dates out of it. It's sort of like the top of the marketing funnel, I guess. You're out there practicing and learning. Then you kind of get into your app and people want to go on dates. And I was very much like, I didn't want a lot of the long chit chat. There can be a lot of exchange between people on the apps. And I'm like, let's go on a date. I want to meet you and see what you're really like. I have a hard time kind of getting to know you over weeks of chatting. Like, that was just not my thing. But either way, it's great because kind of the end goal is to like go on a date and meet this person. So they're a great tool for that. And people say bad things about it, but I think they really work, particularly in your 40s and above. Because if you think about it, the guys or whoever we're trying to meet, they may be divorced. They haven't been dating in like years. They have zero idea how to date. They don't know how to go to a bar and meet anyone. My guess is like these guys that I was looking for that are in their 40s, probably in their garage, like doing something, maybe in their den watching TV by themselves, maybe with their buddies. They might be hanging out at the neighbor's house. They're like in their suburban neighborhood or wherever they are. I mean, that's being, just picking one group, but they don't really know how to date either. So they're not out. They're not out in the wild. So you got to go find them. And they're on these apps. And this is, my husband is like such a great dating expert because he had been through it too. And we talk about it still now. We laugh about some of the things that we experienced. And I was asking recently, about, we were talking about it, just, what would it be like now? And he's like, oh my gosh, dating apps. He's like, I had been married for 15 years. He met his ex-wife when he was 21. She was 18. They've been married for 15 years. He's like, I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know what I was doing. I was out there just like a deer in the headlights. Like, I had to know. And so, the apps are great. He goes, it's a lot like going to a bar, but you get to sit on your couch. You're going up and talking to people, but you're at your couch and you're just like relaxing. You don't have to go anywhere. And I was like, that is a really good analogy. Apps are just like walking up to someone, picking someone, right? That's just like swiping. You pick someone in the bar, you're like, oh, that person looks like interesting, cute. I'll go talk to them. And then that's what you do. And that's how guys view it. So he's such a good insight. It was always helpful. It helps me help my single friends figure out dating now. So yeah, apps are great. It is like, that's where the guys over 40 might probably be. And so I say use them and have fun with them. They could be tricky navigating them. And I'm going to talk about that in another video about kind of how to have the conversations and some of the really tactical stuff about using the apps, some like little scripts, templates you can use to help you say no to people or say yes to people or engage people. So that'll be in a future video, but it's really, it's fun. Once I figured it out, I was like, yeah, I'm excellent at this. And so that's how I met my husband. We met on Bumble. He actually lived 90 minutes away. I was living in Charlotte at the time, and I got to the end of Charlotte. It was like, there's no one else in your criteria here. And I was like, oh, okay. So I expanded my scope to like, I was like, I'm willing to drive an hour and a half to go to a couple of these cool towns. And so I met him. He wasn't even in my town. And that's how Bumble allowed us to meet, because he would have never met me out in the wild. So that's what I want to say about apps. Love them. I think that apps and events go really great hand in hand. Events really help you. I mean, you might meet someone at an event and that would be awesome, but it also helps train you to chit chat with people and go on dates when you meet people through the apps. So it's a perfect little marriage of technology and face-to-face experiences. So the one thing I do want to mention that's like a little pro tip for the apps, once you land a date, or to help you land a date, I had a friend, he met his wife online, and his tip for me that I used for like ever, which was the best, he said the best date is an ice cream date. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, the perfect date to go take someone out is an ice cream date. He's like, because one, it's short. So if it's not going well, it's not very long. It doesn't take that long to eat ice cream. It's not very expensive. So if it doesn't go well, you didn't spend a bunch of money. He said, everyone, I mean, if they're going on this date with you, everyone loves ice cream and they have a good feeling about it. So he's like, if the date didn't go well and, they leave and maybe I didn't like them, when I tell them no, they're not going to hate me because they're going to feel good. Like, I don't know, it felt like a really nice date though. I got ice cream. So he's like, everyone leaves the date feeling good because they had ice cream. So regardless of how it plays out, everyone has like a nice memory of it. And I thought that was genius. And then I took his kind of idea to the next step because I'm a little bit of a marketer. And once I was messing around with the apps, I realized it's nice to have a call to action so that people know how to start a conversation with you. Sometimes if you're just like, hi, I'm Elizabeth. I love, bowling or whatever. Guys aren't necessarily like smart enough to, not to say smart enough, but like sharp enough to be like, I should ask her about bowling. So sometimes I'll ask a direct question like a good marketer, and I'll end my profile or whatever, my headline with like, do you want to get ice cream? Because people will read that and be like, yeah, I want to get ice cream. Who doesn't want to get ice cream? So it gives them like an intro to say like, yes, I'd like to get ice cream. They can answer your question. And then you've already got that ice cream date set up. So there you go. It's like a no-brainer, and it's fun and easy, and everyone feels good, and you get ice cream. So that's the ice cream date pro tip. The very last thing I want to mention, so I've talked about events and the benefit of that and the apps and then the ice cream date magic. And the last one is about matchmakers. This is one that I never did. And I'm kind of like, man, I wish I had done that or had the opportunity to do that, because when I was in my 30s, there was a company called It's Just Lunch. It was big in Atlanta, still around. I looked it up again, and it's still there. But there's many, many other matchmaking companies now. And so you pay them a fee, and they kind of curate your selection for you of people that you want to meet and go have lunch with. And I love that it's a lunch. It's kind of like the ice cream date, right? We should start a company called like It's Just Ice Cream. But it was great. And in my 30s, I just didn't have wasn't making enough money to make the investment in it. And I think now it would be really worth it, because you might be busy now and not want to go on all of these things, right? Or spend all the time on the apps. So it's like hiring a recruiter. It's someone to sell you and get you out there without you having to actually go. And then also curate like really good matches. When you're on the apps, it's kind of like you're just fishing in a big pond and you're just looking around. I mean, the algorithms help narrow it down, but it's a lot of people. And if the algorithm runs out of people, it's just going to throw you like random fish. But the matchmakers, they're getting paid well. The people who are on their list have also, like you, paid for this service. So you know that they're committed to this dating. They're interested in a relationship. They're maybe a little more serious than someone on an app. Excuse me, just casually dating. It's getting me all choked up thinking about it. So I wish I had gotten to do a matchmaker. How fun that would be. But these are often professionals who are really busy. So they're committed to this. They want to meet someone, and they're interested in making the effort to do it. So I think matchmaking would be very cool. I would try It's Just Lunch. The only caveat that and I don't know if this is true because I haven't done it, but I had been thinking in the past that people who might be too busy to go use the apps and do the events might be really too busy to date. I don't know. Or they might have limited time for you or dating. So it's something to be aware of. It doesn't mean you have to like write them off, or even like I wouldn't even ask about it necessarily on the first date. I just might want to keep that in mind so that while you were dating, you're like, oh, are they available? Do they have time to date me? Are they clear about what time they do have? Maybe they're like, I work really hard during the week, but on the weekends, I am all yours. Like, that's great. If you're cool with that, or if you really want someone every day, then that might not be the person for you. But something to think about with the matchmakers, because they might just be like really busy and you want to know kind of what they're, what does that look like for them? What does dating look like for them? How much time do they have every week to spend, working on a relationship? So that's something to think about, but you don't have to bring that up on the first date or second date. That's just, that audience. So lots of different audiences, so many ways you can reach them. I mean, really, this is marketing, right? It's like marketing, getting yourself out there so that you can meet your person. This is so cool. Your person will be there. Maybe several people. Maybe it doesn't have to be one person. There could be just multiple people. But I want this to be encouraging for you because it can be really fun and enjoyable if you go into it with just this light heart of experimentation. Like I just listed a bunch of things you can try. 8-a-day dinners, mixers, speed dating, game night. I mean, there's that, matchmaking, apps. There's a bunch of apps. So, you can try different things for a certain amount of time and then just let them go and move on to experimenting with a new thing. So enjoy it and think of it like an experiment and see what you learn. I mean, I learned a ton. So take that time also like an experiment to do some reflection. When you, the one woman that I used to love talking to about dating, she said like after each date, she would leave herself a voice note about how it went. So she could go back and listen to like her perception of that. And then maybe also say like, was I off base with that? Or how did I behave? So I think it's like really, now they're a little more self-aware. I feel this is, particularly when you're over 40 or in your 30s, this is great. I did all this stuff in my 30s. So this works for that too. It's a good time to be dating. It's fun and you're smarter and you know more and you know who you are more. So get out there and try it and stay here to keep listening because I've got some more things. I've got, like 6 or 7 more parts of this series about how to open your heart to dating, some really, really nitty-gritty practical tips of dating that I learned from my dating coach because I got a amazing dating coach that really helped me kind of work through some of my stuff to make me a better dater. And just a lot of things like dating younger men, dating long distance, and then kind of like what happens when you get married. That's going to be kind of, it's going to be flow. So I'm really looking forward to this and sharing it with you guys. And so I hope you're here along for the ride and be looking for more videos and have a great time dating. I hope you get out there. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to give you my honest answers about dating after like doing it for 20 years and finally meeting my husband at 47. So you can do it too. And I'm here for you. All right. Thanks. I'll see y'all later.